Okay, we are looking at the interfaces and their cables. I told us that it's good that we have identified the interface by the inscription on it, that when you see 10 by 100 and by 1000 base C ports, there's some information that you should get there. And if you zoom down, further down, you see the shape of the ports, how each port looks like. This is actually a 10 by 100 by 1000 um, gigabit switch. So that's the speed that the port does. And these ports all have RJ45 connected to them. The RJ45 means router jack, as you can see on your screen. And this is what the RJ45 connection looks like. Remember, I told us in our last class that all network nodes connect to the switch via this cable. So it is the cable itself now, the principle behind the cable, we are going to look at very soon. So, like I said before now, we need to understand what is the Ethernet. I believe you have been hearing much about internet. So let us look at what the meaning of Ethernet is all about. Told us in our last class that Ethernet is a collection of network protocols and standards. A collection of network protocols and standards. Now we need to understand what are protocols and what are standards, or you can refer to it as what are network or Ethernet protocols and what are Ethernet standards. And then for us to understand the concept of protocol, I gave us this diagram. And I told us that there are two individuals. One is in Nigeria, here, Calabar, while the other one is in Tokyo. They are both preparing for their CCNA documents. And it so happens that this man has a way of connecting to the other man, and he asks him for the CCNA study tips, and the man is telling him Japanese. So what that means is that they cannot understand themselves. So in order for all the network nodes to be able to communicate with each other, remember that each network node is coming from a different manufacturer. So, the people that produces routers are different people that produces switches. People that produce switches are different people that produces your iPhone. People that produce your iPhone are different people that produce CCTV cameras. People that produces CCTV cameras, they are different people that produce your network printer, your iMac, your laptop. They are all different manufacturers. But how do they now work in order for signal to be passed from one end device to the other end device? Is for them to speak one language. So that language is what I refer to as protocols. And protocols are sets of instructions that must be adhered to in order for information to be passed. Having said that, the next thing I will also look at is standard. And I gave us this illustration and I told us that for us to understand what the standard means is that let's assume that this man, the screen on my right is a switch, but the connector, or rather the interface with which this switch uses to accept connection is different from what is already on the what is already in the market. And what is already in the market is RJ45 connectors, which is already a standard everywhere. But guess what? When that is trying to connect to the switch, it's telling that your cable cannot fit into my port. So because of that, the same standard has to be followed. That's why when you look at your laptop, you will see a port where you can connect your RJ45 connector to. Take note, the manufacturers of your laptop, they are different from the manufacturers of the network card, or they are also different from people that manufacture the switch. But because they are operating on the same standard, it means that when you connect an RJ45 connector into your laptop, you can also connect it into your switch and have a cable connection from your laptop, your system, your printer, your network scanner, whatever you want to connect to the network, you have it connected to the switch, directly to the switch. Now, I haven't talked about that. We now need to understand what is the basic information that is inside, that transmits within this cable. How does this particular device get information from this other device? It is not rocket science. What they're actually playing with is a particular means of measurement, or a concept of measurement whereby we can take a off and an on instruction, and these things work with that. What that means is that the network operates with bits. The simplest information that is on the network is in terms of bits. It's either a 0 or a 1. Everything that we're talking about the computer, how it moves data from one place to the other end. When it comes to the wire line, it comes down to 0 and 1. And the combination of these bits into 8 of bits is what we refer to as the bytes. Now, we need to really understand, because we are always making the mistake of saying megabytes, megabits, or we see the SIM status Mbps. We also refer to as megabytes per second instead of megabits per second. And that's the reason why I'm explaining this to us. Measure speed in the network. To measure speed in the network, I'll use this illustration to express it. Now, if router 1 wants to pass information to router 2, what it does is to send it in this format, meaning that as this router, the other end is receiving it at an information at a time. So after this one comes the next one, after this other one comes the other one, after this one comes the 0, after the 0 comes another 0. So this information is being passed 1 bit at a time. But it is not, as every other people will often call it, the information coming as a byte at a time, meaning that this whole bunch is coming all the way from this end to this end at the same time. No, it comes one after the other. So that means that in order for us to define what the speed of the network means, we say speed is measured in bits per second. How many bits is being transmitted per second? And we have different conception of it. We have the kilobits per second, we have the gigabits per second, we have the terabits per second, not bytes per second. That's what I just wanted us to clarify before we can move on. So the bits often comes in this formation, or the network, or the speed of the network is usually in this format. When we say 1 kilobit per second, it means that we have 1,000 bits per second, or we have 1,000 bits. When we say 1 megabyte, it means 1 million bytes. When we say 1 gigabyte, it means 1 billion bytes. And when we say 1 terabyte, it means 1 trillion bytes. So this is the convention. So that is why you often have this first alphabet as a capital character, like K is KB, MB, GB, and TB. It is not 1024, meaning that it is small k. It is a big K, meaning 1000 bits. So, but please take note, this convention is used for the speed of the network, not the data in the network, because most times data is measured in the small letter k. So when we move on, we'll understand more of what I'm trying to say. Now, looking at the standard, it was in 1983 that the IEEE, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, defined the IEEE 802.3 standard for Ethernet. Now, this was the standard that they defined. It was in 5 categories: in speed, common name, the standard itself, the informal name, and the length of cable that the standard can obey. So the very first one was 10 Mbps, meaning that it's 10 megabytes per second. And then the common name is the Ethernet, which is the very first standard Ethernet. And the name, please take note of the letters beside at the end. The 802.3i is Ethernet itself. Sometimes you may see on the switch or on a router the IEEE standard, the name itself, not the common name. So you may be confused. So immediately you see this inscription, you know the speed of the network. So for Ethernet, we have this 802.3i, and it's referred to as the 10-base-T network. The maximum length of that cable for the cable is 100 meters. Now the 10-base-T means baseline, then twisted pair. The T means stands for twisted pair, while the base is the baseline and 10 is the speed. So when you see 10-base-T cables, you know that Ethernet and connections, you know that the speed of that network is 10, and then is working with the twisted pair connector. The standard is 82.3. Now we now have the what they call it fast Ethernet. It's 10 times the speed of the Ethernet, and then the standard is 82.3U. It is 100-base-T, and the maximum distance of the cable can take or you can use is 100 meters. We also have 1 Gbps, like the switch we showed you earlier on. It's actually 10 by 100 by 1000, which is 1 Gbps. This is 82.3 AB. Please take note of the alphabet beside it, AB. Means that it's 1000-base-T, and the distance maximum length is 100 meters. We also have 10 Gbps, and then it means 10 G Ethernet. The standard name is AM. So you can use like those are please Scrabble, IUAB and IUAB and to remember the way the letters were written. So that in case if you have an exam that is asking you what are the standards of Ethernet in the IEEE definition, you can just remember IUAB. It's a short form that we normally use by the writing exams. So that is the speed, we define the speed and everything. Let's move on. Now, let's now look at what the cable is all about. Cable is usually referred to as the UTP cable. U stands for unshielded, T stands for twisted, and P for pair. Why they said the cable is unshielded is because there is no electromagnetic shield around the cable. It means that the cable is vulnerable to electromagnetic induction or electromagnetic interference. So in order to overcome that electromagnetic interference, the cables within them were now twisted. So the twisting is as a result of avoiding electromagnetic interference. And the pair is twisted in pair. You can see that each is twisted in twos. So that is just the reason why we have the twisted pair. If not, you would have seen it coming out all in straight format. And the second thing is that another thing is that in as much as this cable was twisted, it still has a little bit of leak or electromagnetic leak. So the cable is still a little bit vulnerable in the sense that you can sense the signal or waves leaving the cable as current is passing the cable, traversing the cable, and be able to listen to the information in that network. So that's what makes it a little bit more vulnerable than the fiber cable. We are going to be talking about the fiber cable very soon, so just bear with us as we go. Now, if you take note of the RJ45 connector, you know that you see that it has 8 grooves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 grooves, and then there's a separate video that I have that explains how these cables are arranged. I will put the link of the video in this section when you are playing the video. So for now, let's just bear with me that this is how the connector looks like. But in as much as we have 8 connectors or 8 cables in that cable, we actually use 4 of the cable in 10-base-T and 100-base. That's Ethernet and fast Ethernet. We actually use 4 pairs out of that cable to actually transmit and receive, which I will explain to us very soon. And sorry, we use 2 pairs rather, which is 4 wires. Why in the 1 Gbps and 10 Gbps, the 8 wire is being used as the 4 pairs. So now let's explain how information is being passed in the Ethernet cable so that we can be able to know which of the connectors or which of the cables, wires that we are using. Each of these wire is labeled 1, 2, 3 to 8. And in that video that I talked about, I will show you the different colors. But let's first of all understand how information is being passed from one system to the other. In this case, we are using a PC. This is an icon for a PC and a switch. So we are assuming here now that the cable has been run from the system all the way to the switch. Now, at this end, this is how the way we ought to arrange the cable. And at this end is also an RJ 45 connector. This is an RJ 45 connector. So the way the pins to be arranged and the cables sealed in is what I'm trying to explain to us. What am I trying to say? Pin 1 and 2 is connected together at both ends, meaning that for the PC, pin 1 and 2 is used for transmission, meaning the information leaves this end to this other end. While on the switch, pin 1 and 2 is meant for reception. It is very important we have this information at the back of our head. Now, the second one is that 4 and 5 is actually skipped. So we now have 3 and 6 because of some level of interference in order for the cables to avoid electromagnetic interference. That's why we have to do this skipping from the documentation I read online. But this is the standard. So 3 is connected to 3 and 6 is connected to 6. But in this case now, 3 and 6 is used for reception in the system, while 3 and 6 on the switch is used for transmit. So information leaves from this end to this end. Why information leaves from this end to this end? It means that both of them can transmit and receive at the same time, and that means a full duplex. So this, let's change narrative. Let's assume that okay, there's a router here now, and you still have a switch. Now you want to connect your router to the switch. It's still the same thing, meaning that on a router, pin 1 and 2 is meant for transmit, while pin 1 and 2 on the switch remains for receive. While in the router, pin 3 and 6 is meant for receive, and for the switch it still remains for transmit. So this shows that for a router and a PC, both have the same pinouts at the same end to achieve full duplex. And this kind of cable is referred to as the straight-through cable. Now let's summarize. I said routers and PCs, they transmit with pin 1 and 2, while they receive with pin 3 and 6. They receive with pin 3 and 6. You just take note of that. 1, 2 is for transmit, and while 3, 6 is for receive. So we'll refer to this as T arrow. Now for the switch, we have pin 3 and 6 for transmit, and pin 1 and 2 just a reverse for receive. It is very, very important because what we just did now, you can see that each of these cables are connected to each other. It means that this particular cable, if you did your connection like this, it means that this cable is referred to as a straight-through cable. The straight-through cable. So we have a PC or a computer or a laptop, a MacBook connected to a switch. It's a straight-through cable that we use. Or you have a router connected to the switch. Those two illustrations we did the other time. It's a straight-through cable we use. But what if in a situation whereby we want to connect a router to another router? I know that the router 1 and 2 is for transmit, and pin 3 and 6 is for receive. What happens is that there will be a jump on the way because this over here is taking this as arrow TX also, and this end as arrow X. So both of them cannot be transmitted at the same time. It therefore means that another kind of cable has to be created for this purpose. Or we have a switch.
whereby we want to switch to connect from this end to this other end. Still, we have a jam because in a switch, 1 and 2 is for receive, and 3 and 6 is for transmit. So we can no longer use a straight cable to connect either a router to a router, or a switch to a switch, or a PC to a PC. We can no longer use straight cable. So what do we need now is a crossover cable. And this is what happens in the crossover cable. In the crossover cable, remember that for the switch, receive is 1 and 2, and then transmit is 3 and 6. So in order to ensure that while this man is receiving, this other man is transmitting, or while this man is transmitting, this other man is receiving, we'll connect pin 1 to pin 3 and connect pin 2 to pin 6. So both of the transmit at this end is connected to receive at this other end. Then in this case now, we also connect pin 3 to pin 1 and pin 6 to pin 2, meaning that the transmit of this end is connected to the receipt of this end. That is the principle behind this cable. That's why it is called a crossover cable. Now, the same thing happens when you try to connect a router to a PC. Remember, routers and PCs uses 1 and 2 for transmit, 3 and 6 for receive. So in order to connect them, if you use a straight cable to connect them, it will never work. So it's only a cross cable you can use in connecting them. And also PC to PC, don't miss out on that. Remember, I told us in our first class that you can actually copy an entire movie from one laptop to the other laptop. All you just need to do is to make a crossover cable, connect both laptops together, share your IP addresses and the rest, and you can copy your information. We will do all those in our practical section. Now, these are the summary of what we've been talking about. That for a router, pin 1 and 2 is for transmit. The same with firewall and the same with PC. The only difference is the switch. The switch uses pin 3 and 6 for transmit. While pin 3 and 6 is used for receive in the router and the firewall, and also the PC, but it's the other way around for the switch. So this table, please try and memorize it so that when you are doing your connection, after running all your cables, you will know how to properly terminate your RJ45 connector so that your network can come on. Now, having said that, most times, most people make the mistake of connecting a switch to a switch using a straight through cable, and they are surprised that it still works. The truth about it is that there's a protocol that is running at the background, and that protocol is called Auto MVIX. What happens is that it senses the cable. Maybe it sees that there is a possible jam in the network. It does it logically, whereby you can be able to communicate. So that is called Auto MVIX functionality in the switch. Now, having said that, let's now go to another type of cabling that uses not electrical current this time around, but lights, which is called the fiber optics cable. Now, if you take note of it, I brought the switch up again so to look at it. Look at the ports in this place. We have about 24 ports, all Ethernet or fast Ethernet ports. But there is another type of port that is on the switch, which is at this other end. Now, this port is different from the shape, is different from that of the Ethernet. This is the fiber port that we're looking at. I'm bringing up a router now. On the router, we have just 4 fast Ethernet ports on the router. But guess what? We have a whole lot of these similar ports at the back of this router. What it means is that this router can take a lot of fiber connections. Now, that slot that you have there is actually meant for an SFP transceiver that the fiber cable uses. So the SFP means small form factor pluggable. You actually buy it, it's a little bit more expensive than the RJ45 connector. So you buy it and slide it into the spot. Maybe you slide it into the spot, you can now use the fiber cable, which is, it comes in a pair for transmit and on the other pair for receive. So this is what you now slide into that into the SFP connector so that you can be able to communicate. So in order to communicate with one router to another router, all you need to do is to buy two of these, slide this the into one of the slots, and then buy the other one into the other slot, then take your cable to plug between both devices. With that, you have a connectivity one-time fiber optics. Now, this was what I was trying to explain to us, that the, the, the fiber cable comes in a pair. We have a pair for one end for transmit, the other end for receive, meaning that if this end is a transmit, it means that its counterpart at the other end is a receive. Why, if this other end is a transmit at this other end, it means that its counterpart at the other end is a transmit. So that is how information is being passed in a fiber cable. And the fiber cable, okay, let's look at the structure of the fiber cable itself. It actually has four parts. The very first one is the fiberglass itself, the core itself. That is what the light is being transmitted with. So that is the fiberglass. While the second one is actually the cladding. It reflects the light that is being sent to this into this the fiberglass that goes to the distance that it's made for. Then the third part is a protective buffer. After the protective buffer is the outer jacket that protects the fiber itself. The fiber is actually in micrometers, almost micrometers, meaning that the size of it is like the size of your head. So this number one, that is the size. It is just being magnified in this case. Now, having said that, I said there are two. It comes in two modes. We have the single mode and the multi-mode. And the two modes is what I'm going to explain to you in my next slide. We'll start with the multi-mode. The multi-mode has two types. We have the one of 380 micrometers. It has a larger pore of about 200 micrometers, and the light that comes into it allows multiple entry of light to enter into it. Like in this case now, we have three rays, 1, 2, and 3, sending information through the same through the same core. Why in this other case? In the second type, the second type is a 125 micrometers and fiber cable. Is a multi-mode fiber, and it also has about 4, or let's say 3. Let's assume that it is 2 of these amber, 2 of these, and 1 of that, about 5 light rays that enters into it. What happens is that there is an SFP that for each one, that the core diameter is wider than a single mode fiber. Please take note. I was about to explain something about the SFP, which I will explain later. But this is most important, that the difference between a multi-mode fiber and a single mode fiber is the core. Please take note. Both of them, they are both multi-mode fibers. I will show you the single mode fiber very soon. You'll find that the core itself is very, very small because it actually allows one ray to pass through, whereas the multi-mode fiber allows multiple rays to pass through. So, but these are two types. The first type is a 380, and the second type is a 125 micrometers. It is based on the application you want to use it for that you actually go for this kind of setup. So, but what is most important is that the core diameter is wider than the single diameter. These are the characteristics. The second thing you also need to take note of is that it allows multiple angle or modes of light rays to enter into the fiberglass core. Then the third thing is that it allows longer cables than UTP, but shorter cables than single mode fiber. What am I trying to say? Remember, our standard for UTP was that 100 meters for cable. Remember that in our sorry, let me pause in this case. Okay. Now this is the single mode fiber cable. You can see the difference that this is actually a 125 micrometers cable. It beats the difference between the one of multiple. I showed us the previous one that it had 125 micrometers, and but it allowed multiple rays to enter into it. But in this particular case, why it's called single mode, because it's allowing just one ray to pass through. So please take note. The one of the 125 micrometers allow multiple ray. Because it allows multiple ray, that particular type is a multi-mode fiber. But this one that allows only one ray is the actual single mode fiber. And now let's look at the characteristics. The characteristics that the core diameter is narrower than the multi-mode fiber. In fact, let's look at the previous one. You can find out that though the outer case is 125 micrometer, but the core itself is about 50, between 50 to 100 micrometers. So now let's look at this other one. You can see that the core itself is minus 10 micrometers. So that's just the difference. So the truth about it is that it allows just a single light ray to pass through. I remember it's glass. The essence of this whole blue section is to reflect or to ensure that the light ray that is entering into it is coming out at the other end. It reflects it until it gets to this other end. Now, the second characteristic is that if light enters at a single angle mode from a laser-based transmitter. So I need us to understand the difference between the single mode and the multi-mode. And thirdly, it allows longer cables than both UTP and multi-mode fiber. Remember, I told us that the multi-mode fiber, I will show us distance very soon. It goes way beyond 100 meters. But it does not go as far as the single mode. The single mode can do up to 10 kilometers. That's just the difference. And it is more expensive than the multi-mode fiber cable due to the more expensive laser-based SFA transmitter. Now, this transmitter, because it has only one signal coming in, it is more expensive than that of the multi-mode that uses a cheaper transmitter. It's actually LEDs. You understand? They are cheaper than the single mode and the SFPs. So that is just the basic difference. Now, this is the standard that is being used there. And the standard is that we have the 100 base LX. Then the standard name is 802.3Z. Then the speed is 1 Gbps. The cable type is either a multi-mode or single mode. I would like to end the lecture here now so that we can have a break and we'll attend to other things.
I was asking if you have any questions or we should go ahead.
I can go ahead.
Okay. Now, our first question. I need everybody to participate, so everybody must answer the question because they are all objective. You connect two old routers together with a UTP cable. And however, data is not successfully sent and received between them. What could be the problem? A, they are connected with a string cable. B, they are connected with a crossover cable. C, they are operating in auto MDX. Look at your jotting. You can look at your jottings and think about this question, then give me an answer. Everybody will have to answer. So as I call your name, you would respond. Who is Archibald? What's your answer? Archibald, I'm waiting for you. Okay, the next person, Lovely. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Good evening, sir.
I don't know, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. So based on my jotting and my little reasoning, I think the answer to that question is C. They are operating on an auto MDIX mode. I'm not sure, but I'm just really thinking that it's C.
It's your opinion. It's your opinion. These questions are current CCNE questions. So it was put on database. So it's your opinion. You are going to look at which one is the correct answer. So Johnny King. Who's Johnny King? Or January I King? Actually, I'm still expecting your answer. Have you about saying something? Hello. I'm waiting for your answer.
So I think it's C also.
Okay, C. So everybody agreeing with the
Yes.
C. Or Johnny King about saying something.
He said his is A.
It's A. The right answer.
Yeah, Johnny King says A.
Okay, says A. Okay, no problem. Let's look at what the answer is. The correct answer is A. Now, why do we have it as A? If you had picked B, they are connected with a crossover cable. The crossover cable is not the issue. The crossover cable would likely fix the issue because both routers transmit their similar devices. They transmit data on pins 1 and 2. A crossover cable is necessary to properly connect the transmit pins on one side of the connection to the receiving pins on the other side. So it's a crossover cable because they are both routers. It's not a router switch or a PC router. So, but the issue of auto MDIX is also correct, which is C. But take note, they are old routers. So that time, auto MDIX may not have been working. So that answer too does not make it right. Now, okay, that's the C part I was explaining just now. So which means that A is the answer. They are connected with a straight through cable. On old devices without auto MDIX, a straight through cable cannot be used to connect these devices at the same time. So a crossover cable is necessary for both devices to be able to work. So who said A? Archibald.
Johnny King. Johnny King.
Anything. Okay, thank you very much.
Johnny King.
Okay, let's look at the second question. Let's look at question. So every other person now be ready for your own. Your computer wants to connect switches in two separate buildings, and which is about 150 meters apart. They want to keep the cost down by all possible means. What kind of cable should they use? A UTP cable, an untwisted cable, a single-mode fiber cable, a multi-mode fiber cable. What's your answer?
Mine is A.
Kevin, say what?
I said A.
A. Okay. Why did you say?
Because from what I see here, UTP cables are cheaper.
That's true. These people are very, very cheap. Okay, any other person? Hello? Where are the people now? If are not talking, you can you hear me?
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir. So I'll go with the A also because of in terms of the costs.
Okay. No, in terms of cost, don't have an issue. But A is not the answer. The answer is C. And why is it C? Although UTP cable will keep the cost down, it does not support the distance because the maximum distance for UTP is 100 meters. For that cable, they were saying 150 meters. So after 150 meters, your signal attenuates. So despite the fact that you have been able to get a cheap cable, you have not been able to do the job because there's no communication. So that's why A is not the answer. Then B would have been the answer, but it will be too expensive for that kind of job because single mode fiber are for relatively long distance. You understand? And they do close to 30 kilometers. So for a 150-meter job, the best option would have been a 40-mode fiber cable because they can support that particular distance. So C is the answer to. Okay, question number 4 is in fact. Let's go to question number 4. It says that a switch has the following indication over its network interface. What would happen if you connect it to an identical switch with a straight cable? Think about it before we go through the option. You can see the inscription there, 10 by 100 by 1000 is still. And we have an identical switch at the other end of the connection. What will happen if we have a straight cable connecting them? A, they would operate normally. B, they would operate at a reduced speed. And C, they would be unable to communicate. What is the answer?
I think it's B
Why do you think it's B?
because they have wait switch has
Have what?
because I'm hold on please hold on because if there might be a delay if you get to the next network interface.
Maybe a delay. Yeah, there will be delay, obviously.
Yes.
If you have things like collision on the network, and if you have collision on the network, you will not be able to, it will not even work in fact, it will not communicate in the first place. You understand? So, anyways, can any other person help me out here or help Kevin out here?
Hello, sir. I think the answer is C. They won't be able to communicate at all.
So why do you think that?
So because we were earlier on we were talking about switches and router connecting from one point one to point 3 to point 2. So if it's identical, if they're identical switches, that means that connection will not flow through.
Okay, because normally if they are identical switches or identical devices, we should use a crossover cable. I think that's what they are trying to explain. So because it's not a crossover cable, because they are saying that it was a straight through cable that was connected. So will it work? So in your own case, like no is a straight through cable. Anyways, can any other person help out, please? I believe it's not only Kevin and what's the last person his name? Hello, Archibald. Okay, it's not only Kevin and Archibald that we have here. So I will need other persons to communicate.
So I'm also Godfrey, sir.
Okay, Godfrey, no, sorry, not West. Okay. Yes, I need someone else. before we go to the answer. Okay, now let's see what the answer is. The answer is A. They will operate normally. You have forgotten that there is the NDIX functionality that makes such mistakes, that corrects such mistakes. Now let's look at the reasons why I said so. They would operate at a reduced speed. That would not, sorry, they would not operate at a reduced speed. The ports are auto MDIX enabled. That's why they actually gave you this icon to let you know that it is like you can see auto MDIX. It is a recent switch. It's not an old switch. So as long as this is enabled, if you connect a straight cable to it, it will work normally. So, however, if they didn't have auto MDIX, they won't operate at a reduced speed. They simply won't operate. That means C will have been the answer if they did not have this enabled. That's the auto MDIX. But because it has this enabled on that switch, if you connect a straight through cable, it will work. If you connect a crossover cable, it will work. The only is just that you are following standards by ensuring that it is a crossover cable, because that's what the book still say. But because it has auto MDIX, you can as well also create straight cable around.
Maybe.
Okay, no problem. Let's look at the last question. Let's look at the last question.
Sir, excuse me, sir. I have a question.
Okay, yes, please.
Sir, let me ask you, like this auto MDIX, what does it really do?
It's a functionality inside the switch, inbuilt inside the switch, that immediately senses that you are not following the standard. You are connecting the same one and two that you will have connected to its receive at the other end. You are also making it as transmit, just as normal straight through cable is. Yeah. What it do is that it
Okay, sir.
automatically change its own ports, because it has seen that you have made a mistake. It will change its own port to 3 and 6. So your 1 and 2 will be sending to 3 and 6. Whereas physically, you still have your straight through cable connected. But within it, it's a circuitry that will automatically do the right thing, correcting that flow so that communication will still take place. So it will now automatically change the cable to a crossover cable. That's what it does. It changes the cable to a crossover cable logically by the second. Now we go to the next question, please.
Yes, sir.
Now the next question says that your company needs to connect many end hosts to a switch, which is normal. So, which is in a wiring cabinet on the same office floor as the host? What kind of cable should you use? Let's try. Most times when you read Cisco questions, they are asking you real life questions because they know that maybe they give you certificates. You can tell companies, in fact, it's the trust that you know what you are doing that makes them to give you certificate. And based on that trust, they ask you real life questions, what you will go out there and meet on a good day. Because on a good day, what everybody wants is for you to connect, do a small LAN for them. Someone can call you up and say, okay, come and network my house, come and network my business premises. That is the same question that this question is asking us. How do you network your premises? You understand? So he said in the company, it means the end host, means that it wants all the computers, all the printers, all the scanners that are network scanners, network printers, anything that's network. He wants you to connect to the switch. So the question that they are now asking now, what kind of cable should they use? A UTP cable. B, a single mode fiber cable. And C, multi-mode fiber cable. Answer, please. Hello, guys. I'm waiting for you.
Hello, sir. I just came through my mind. You said something earlier when we were in question. Go on.
Okay.
he said something about in terms of the cable going far, like 100 meters and 150 meters in terms of distance. So now the question is that if you wire a car, the wiring should be from a cabinet to the hose that is in the same office floor, which means that the distance is not that far. So I think it's UTP. I'm bringing in the distance into consideration now, since it's not that very far, up to 150.
Yes, sir. It's UTP. I was also going it.
Okay, that's smart of you. I like the way you analyze the question. That's how you should have analyzed it and given the answer. The answer actually is UTP, and the reason is because
I don't finally get one question. Out of four. Fine.
so because most hosts do not have the capability to connect to a switch via fiber. That's one thing you should take note of, which you did not mention. But that distance you made mention of, that's the perfect reason why that is the answer. But please take note. Most hosts, if you go and buy fiber cable, when you get there, how do you now connect your system to fiber? So what are we talking about? You cannot connect fiber there. That's what it means. So what this is connecting is the UTP cable. That's it. So thank you very much for attending this class. Tomorrow we are going to start with network access. Is it network access? No, I don't think so. We still have an IP before network access. So anyways, thank you for attending this class, and we edit this video, and yeah, it's on the YouTube channel.
Thank you, sir.
One, watch it in the YouTube channel. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good night.